Shalom everyone, my name is Jacqueline Luz and I would like to welcome you all to a new video in the series Youth Themes in our channel, Young Pilgrims. So today I will be talking about a specific celebration that takes place annually, and it's actually coming around the corner, and it's during the month of February. It's a day where a lot of love is spread around, like friendship, a day where gifts are given and are received as well, like gifts like cards, flowers, chocolates, etc. And that day is called St. Valentine's Day. So St. Valentine's Day is a day that involves a lot of love, where couples like to go out and have a nice dinner out. They're all dressed pretty nicely, elegant, or they have a nice at-home dinner with delicious food, accompanied by either one's partner or by a group of friends. It is celebrated by many and looked forward to by many, including those who are religious. Now, as lovey-dovey and as friendly as the celebration may seem, is it something that we, as real and true believers, emphasis on real and true, is this something that we should celebrate? Where does this tradition really come from? And is it something that came from the Bible? What is love then, biblically? So in order for us to really understand this day, and why we shouldn't celebrate it, we have to go back into history and see what it may tell us, as well as the real pagan story behind St. Valentine's Day, as well as the story that revolves around it. So, one of the most popular stories behind St. Valentine's Day is the story of a priest from the 3rd century, priest Valentine. And in order to maintain his soldiers in focus, Emperor Claudius II had outlawed marriages, since he believed that they were just a distraction in the soldiers' mind. Priest Valentine would marry these soldiers in private, only to get caught one day. And during his time locked up, it is said that he met a young girl, or woman, the story is different, that was blind. He was sentenced to execution since he refused to renounce his faith. And on the day of his execution, he sent a note to that girl or woman. By a miracle, she was able to see. Some say that the note said, "I am your Valentine," or "Here is your Valentine." But most agree on that this is the act that inspired the act of giving cards during Valentine's Day. Now, this story is one of the most famous stories since it relates more to love and the fight between a priest to help couples marry behind the back of a strict emperor, only to get caught and executed. Now, this is the religious story behind St. Valentine's Day, but when did it truly begin to be celebrated? So in the 5th century, Pope Gelasius I instituted the celebration of Valentine's Day on February 14th, supposedly in order to commemorate the martyr death of Valentine. Now, if we go deeper and analyze the history of many of the celebrations kept today, we will notice that many have a very pagan origin, with its roots in Roman paganism. St. Valentine's Day is actually no different. During the month of February, or Februarius, the Romans would celebrate the festivity of Lupercalia on the Ides of Februarius, or the 15th of February. Lupercalia was a fertility festival or celebration made in commemoration to the Roman founders Romulus and Remus, who, in accordance to Roman history, were 2 young boys who were nurtured by a female wolf, or Lupa, as well as the Roman god Faunus. During this time, it is said that the members of the Luperci, an order of Roman priests, would gather in a cave where Romulus and Remus were nurtured and would make sacrificial offerings. The priest would sacrifice a goat for fertility and a dog for purification. After the sacrifice, the skin was taken off the hind of the animal, and it would then be used to form long strips, which would be used to whip the woman. Now, it was believed that whipping a woman with a piece of the animal's flesh would make them more fertile in the coming year. Hence, women back then would actually accept that whipping in hopes of being able to have a baby. So Lupercalia was still a celebration being done about 150 years after the Messiah. But Pope Gelasius decided to put an end to this festivity and instead initiated the honoring of the martyr death of Valentine. Now, looking at Valentine's Day, we see that it does not have the same connotation that it used to have back then, or what Pope Gelasius tried to put. Instead, we see that it has been given a more romanticized connotation. We see many different symbols during this day, such as hearts, roses, the color red to represent love and passion, as well as pink and white. But a well-known and very popular symbol that we can see during this time period is the Cupid. Cupid comes from the Roman mythology. He is the son of Venus, goddess of love and sexuality, and Mars, god of war and disorder. This, of course, derived from the Greek mythology of Eros, son of Aphrodite and Ares. Now, Eros is a character that represents eroticism, sexuality, living a disorderly life, passion, but at the same time living war, emotional debauchery, etc., etc. Looking at the definition of this character and what it symbolizes or represents, then we realize that it has relevance to what St. Valentine's Day is practiced as today. We see many relationships, as well as marriages, nowadays being short-lived. They do not last long, and are only there for the passion, for the emotions, as well as for the pleasure. It has nothing really to do with loving someone or appreciating them, having them in consideration in their everyday lives. On the contrary, we see that love, in general, is more selfish nowadays, where people look to satisfy their own egoistic needs. Now, like Christmas, we see that Valentine's Day itself is a celebration that has its pagan roots as well in Roman history. So the question now is, should this day be celebrated? The answer is no. Just like mentioned in our past video where we talked about Christmas, this day should not be celebrated since it has nothing to do with the scriptures. We are not called to commemorate this day by the Eternal Father. As seen in Leviticus 23, and as we are currently studying now, the Eternal has already set 7 different annual celebrations or festivities that we should commemorate in our lives, with one weekly festivity as well. They are not like the celebrations of the world, that are built upon lies and disorder, but they are celebrations that help build and strengthen the communion we have with the Celestial Father through His one and only Son. They benefit and fill our lives with true hope and faith in our Creator. Many don't see this day as anything bad. They find this day to be a beautiful thing since love is spread around unconditionally. But what is love really? Love in the modern day is led by emotionalism. It is fast, it is temporary. Much of what people call love are usually led by emotions. Emotions that seek self-satisfaction, materialism needs and wants. If we look at relationships in today's age, we see that many are based on the need of having someone else by their side, just to take pictures with, to go out and do what one wants to do, to buy gifts and receive gifts from. It doesn't consist of actually planning on settling down with that person. It consists of getting the fulfillment of an egoistic and temporary need. When we look at the scriptures, the biggest act of love that we can actually find in there, and that is true, it is not that sort of honey dipped in love, the love that the world teaches, is the love or the consideration that the Eternal Father has for us by giving His own Son for the purification of our lives, for us to be able to have a path, a minister, someone who was perfect in all His ways, so that we could have a real communion with the Father. In John 14:6 it says, Yeshua answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Now, the Messiah did not do this act in a selfish way or with emotions. He did not do it with the mindset of it being a temporary thing. No. On the contrary, He offered Himself with full knowledge of what would happen and that it would help provide a path for us towards our Father. And He did it knowing that this offering would help many for centuries and centuries. He did not think of a reward, and He did not do it to fulfill His own desires. This is the real act of love, of consideration. As for us, we should see this truly as an example for us on how to love people, not in the romanticized way that the world has painted today, where everything is for self-pleasure and momentary, but we should be considerate of our neighbors. We need to be willing to die in our flesh, leave behind all that leavening that used to contaminate us, in order to have true consideration and love for our neighbor. But what does that look like? This means that we quit living a life without the eternal in it, and we begin a consecrated life towards the Celestial Father, where we keep His commandments, His laws, and we apply them to our life and put them into practice. The best way in which we can be considerate and in which we can love the other person is through the scriptures. Because as long as we have the Eternal's laws in our mind and hearts, we will proceed to do good and demonstrate consideration for the neighbor without doing anything that could possibly harm them in any way. If we actually comply to the Eternal Father's commandments, we learn to be loyal, to be firm. And the moment we find our partner, the moment we plan on settling down with someone, we will actually be able to love them. Not in the temporary and unloyal way that the world practices, but with the love that is beneficial for them and for us. One where we look to obey the Father together as a team, exalting Him, being loyal to Him, firm on our belief together. If we start to separate ourselves from the Egypt that we lived in, and if we begin to consecrate ourselves purely to the Father, if our mind is renewed with the coming of the breath of life, the Ruach or Spirit that the Father gives us, then we are preparing ourselves for that moment that we decide to settle down. Because of what the Father teaches us, we will seek to do good for our neighbor, for our partner, and not evil. In Romans 13:10 it says, "Love does no harm to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law." True or real love is the fulfillment of the law, because with them we learn to do good to our neighbor and not cause harm. For this reason, we see why we shouldn't celebrate Valentine's Day. In Deuteronomy 18:9 it says, "When you enter the land the Eternal is giving you, do not learn to imitate the detestable ways of the nations there." In other words, once we learn the truth, once we decide to consecrate ourselves to our Father, we should leave the detestable practices that the world has, like its pagan celebrations, and we should not follow the way they teach love as, making it seem as though it can be momentary, just for the pleasure, egoistic, a love that is more controlling and toxic than beneficial for both members. As true believers in the Eternal Father and in His Son, we should not take part of this worldly disorder. We should instead follow the path the Messiah has set for us, the example He is for us, to have a real communion with our Father, so that in that way we can love our neighbors truly how the Father has taught us, through His scriptures and through the fulfillment of them. Thank you everyone for watching this video. We would appreciate it if you guys could give us a thumbs up and if you could share out this video so that more people can learn the truth behind Valentine's Day as well as what real love is biblically. Any comments or suggestions you guys may have about topics that we could further on later on in the future do a video about, you guys can write them down in the comment section down below and we'll get to them. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you all have a blessed day. Blessings!